Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the No Bullshit Property Podcast, brought to you by Cert Property. I'm Paul.
And I'm Howard.
And today we'll be taking you through our highlights of 2023. But before we get started with this episode, just a quick reminder to check out our previous episodes to give you the inside track on the ever-growing build-to-rent sector and our unique approach to community building and property management. That's a wrap on 2023.
Not quite there yet, but getting there.
So our predictions for 2023, did we get them right?
Well...
Do you need a reminder of what they were?
That might help, yeah.
So we talked about affordability for people, the removal of the price caps for energy that was due to happen in April.
God, that seems like a lifetime, doesn't it?
I'm sure we're due another one shortly.
Yeah. I mean, it has been a theme throughout the year, hasn't it, that cost of living has increased. It's impacted in sort of every form of living and life and every industry, but for the property industry, there's been a slightly strange effect that even though things like energy costs have increased, certainly city centre Manchester and the other markets we work in, rents have continued increasing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And do you think there's been any changes in how... I mean, I think we talked on one episode at the end of last year about changes in how commercial leases would be structured in line with energy and costings like that. Have we seen that effect go through?
In commercial leases? I think we have. I think we're seeing tenants being a lot more aware of things like utility costs and service charge costs more generally. I think there's just a heightened awareness and a heightened level of due diligence that tenants want to undertake before committing to a lease, both on resi and commercial.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree, absolutely. And I was going to say, I think... exactly like you said, from a due diligence point of view, deals are taking a lot longer to go through, and that's both on the commercial and the residential, because people want to be sure of what their liabilities are going to be going forward, and there's a lot more negotiation than there used to be, certainly.
Yeah, experience, that's for sure. and what about the energy costs and the effect there? I mean, you're a bit closer to it than I am, certainly in terms of the residential as well. What do you think the effect has been? What do you think the effect will be for 2024? Jumping ahead a little bit, but it's going to be a key theme, isn't it?
I think it's definitely going to be a key theme. It's here to stay. We're never going to go back to the days where it's a lot cheaper. I think it's certainly at the forefront of people's minds now. So when they search for property or search for commercial property, people are asking what the tariffs are, when the contracts expire, what due diligence you do to tender new contracts. We've got to have much more awareness of that. But I think there's also a lot more ownership individually on how people can conserve power. And there's certainly on the business side, on a commercial side, businesses want to know what you do for your sustainability goals. They want to know how they can track their energy usage. They want to know how you're looking to reduce it. But also happening on the tenant side, and particularly on the build to rent, it's a key focus that tenants want to move into buildings that are energy efficient.
It's interesting, just on a sort of smaller scale anecdotal level. I saw at the weekend adverts for hot water bottles, and the strapline for it was warm the person, not your home. And it's things like that, like Victorian era kind of ways of approaching things. But actually, when you think about it, we've lived through a period where energy costs have been perhaps artificially cheap, and it's just been too easy to have your heating on your home all the time. And
it's definitely an interesting mind shift, because just from talking to friends and colleagues, people talk about having electric blankets and hot water bottles and not leaving lights on, and people just didn't do that a couple of years ago. It's something my dad used to say all the time, but there's definitely much more of a shift on even things like people saying about having showers in the gym and things like that. But certainly
Yeah, indeed.
I think what we'll see going forward is, from a residential point of view, people will look for bills inclusive properties. We've definitely seen Rightmove reported earlier in the year that there was a big shift on people looking for that criteria. I think we'll see it on the build to rent side. people will want to know, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, people will want to know what the liabilities are, and they'll want to be able to forecast going forward and not take any risks. We know that wages aren't increasing at the same rate as bills, so people need to know they can afford things going forward.
Okay, one of our first predictions for 2024, they're more of a shift towards build inclusive rentals for residential property. What else do we have?
We talked about, back on our episode with Jed McPartland, we talked about the build-to-rent sector and splitting into subsectors, particularly on that episode. We talked about suburban build-to-rent, so...
Yeah, I think that was one of our predictions at the start of the year as well, that there would be this splintering into these different subsectors of build-to-rent and that gathering momentum, and yeah, right again there. But that certainly has gathered a lot of momentum during the course of 2023. I think I read something saying that there was more investment into single-family build-to-rent over 2023. Certainly in the regions, than into multifamily. So that's definitely gathered pace. It's perhaps one for 2024 to see how that evolves further.
And what do you think will happen in the major cities? And we're sat now in Manchester, where there's so much construction for build to rent. There's so many live sites already up and running and full. What does that mean for individual landlord?
It's a tricky one because they're squeezed by interest rates anyway. So if you've been a landlord for a while, then you've been used to low interest rates and therefore a good return. That's been squeezed now.
As well as service charge liabilities.
If you're a historic landlord, ground rents as well, although the government have announced a cap on ground rents, which will ease the pain on that bit. And then on the other side, you have got all these build-to-rent blocks coming forwards with more professional management, with more facilities. And yeah, I think it's been a difficult period for build-to-rent, for individual buy-to-let landlords. But there's still always going to be demand that won't be taken up by the build-to-rent blocks, and there'll always be a space in the market for buy-to-let investors. Right here, right now, it's a bit more of a challenging market because the yields have moved on, but interest rates have moved on considerably as well. But as interest rates come back down, buy-to-let investors will come back to the market. And we're still seeing a lot of investment coming into buy-to-let anyway.
I mean, from our residential portfolio, certainly we don't have any issue at all filling buy-to-let properties. I do wonder if that becomes a different tenant demographic, because not everybody wants to live in a build-to-rent hotel, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, something about build-to-rent for me is a lot of the schemes that have come forward over the last 5 years, whatever, the kind of first-generation ones, have all focused on, all the bells and whistles, all the amenities on site. Yeah. But actually, if you're living in a city, do you want to use, and I think this is a theme we've talked about in some episodes, do you want to use your token gym? And I know some of the schemes have got very, very good gyms, but not all of them have. Do you want to pay a premium to use a gym in your building when there's 20 gyms within 5-10 minutes walk of you? Do you need a coffee shop or a co-working facility in your building? So I think, again, that splintering of build to rent can happen in the multifamily sector as well, where there's people who have aspirations to live in a certain location, city centre Manchester, city centre Liverpool, wherever, but not necessarily want to pay the premium with the premium build to rent blocks. So yeah, don't know whether that is a prediction of 2024 there, further splintering of the build-to-rent sector and actually seeing some multifamily coming forwards as
we're definitely seeing that people want to remain in the city, and reoccurring theme for the last few years, but people in the city are getting older and older in age. Manchester being an example, and Liverpool to a point where there's just so many residential properties in the city, and there's different demographics right across the board and to cater for each one of those. You know, people want to be in the city centre and they're not moving out to the suburbs like they were before.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that, here is a prediction for 2024, another subsector of build to rent that will see some momentum is actually more senior focused build to rent. And when I say senior, it doesn't necessarily mean pensioners, but people in their 40s, 50s and 60s.
Careful.
I know. I'm in that age bracket, so I can talk from experience now, who want something different than necessarily what some of the existing build to rent blocks offer. And it's something that we looked at already, where one of our schemes that will be going in for planning in 2024 in Manchester city centre, we've looked at slightly oversized units but less amenities, because for me, I'd rather have a larger apartment than necessarily the amenities in the building, because I'm at a stage in my life where I just value a bit more personal space. And
you want the quality of life of living in the city centre, having all the top restaurants on your doorstep that are in London, all the top shops. The northern cities are just buzzing places to be right now.
Exactly, and continuing to attract people to them. So, that is a prediction for 2024. I think that theme of build to rent being more defined in terms of its offering, whether it's single family, whether it's multifamily, whether it's multifamily senior build to rent. And again, we've seen a few movers already in 2023 on the more senior build to rent.
And how do you think that will impact first time buyers and people buying property?
I think the decision to buy a property for our generation, it wasn't even a decision. It was almost like it's part of the steps on your life path. Yeah. But now it's becoming more of a decision, and I think these build-to-rent blocks coming forward and these different offerings, the single family, if you can live in a brand new home, a 3-bed, 4-bed house with your own garden, that all the maintenance is done for you, all the repairs, you've got it professionally managed, even with additional services on site and amenities on site, would you then want to go and buy a property where you've got to do all that yourselves, and people valuing their time more and more? I think that there is a pivot, and high interest rates have probably contributed to that as well, where it's unaffordable to buy your home as a first-time buyer, or more unaffordable than it's been for a very long time. It will become more of a choice, and it's good to have a range of offerings: homes to buy, homes to rent, whether they're city centre or suburban.
Excellent. Agree.
So I think something we wanted to do in this episode was kind of look back at some of the learnings we've taken from some of the episodes and some of the guests we've had over the year. So I'm going to throw it at you first off, because some of the topics were probably quite new to you. We've learnt about the planning system. We've learnt about development finance, the episode with Sky right at the start of the year from Maslow Capital. Anything that sticks out for you particularly across any of the episodes, whether it's planning, whether it's finance or whatever, in terms of something that you've learnt across the course of the year?
I think the one that sticks in my mind are the planning episodes, and just understanding exactly what goes into those decisions, why we work to the framework that we work to. And what I think has particularly interested me with those episodes is how we can get new, younger blood into those roles, and how we can make sure that there's a diverse diverse spectrum of employees. So I think that's quite an interesting one, is how something like that with the local authorities, how they're bringing people in and how they're making it sexy, like the name of the episode. But it's quite interesting. I'd be interested to watch how that moves forward, because it's such it's different in every local authority, and it's so complex. Certainly there was loads of insights for me on why decisions are made, and I think back to our episode with Rebecca Coley, and she was talking about what their priorities are in Trafford, which are different to other priorities, and it's in other places, and Rebecca was talking about wanting larger apartments. So things like that really stick in my mind. But it's quite interesting how you build a town, build a city. Yeah. And I think there's so much more to talk about on that one. But yeah, I think that one probably sticks in my mind the most, because you almost kind of think of, even being part of CERT and what we do, I've almost kind of thought that that's a very small bit of our journey, but actually it's a huge bit of the journey, and ever more so, and ever evolving going forward.
Yeah, agree. I've almost had a bit of a epiphany this year as well about planning. Obviously, had to interact and interface with planning for years and years doing what we're doing. Yeah. But I think it's only this year that I've kind of seen things from a different set of eyes, from the other side of the fence almost. Like you say, like, why are local authorities making the decisions they're making? Why are things happening in certain ways? And the episode with Rebecca was really insightful on that, to understand it from a different point of view, because it's very easy when you're trying to achieve something that you're trying to achieve. It's difficult to think of other people's opinion and why decisions are being made. But I think planning is one that we'll come back to next year. There's plenty of legs in that.
I think there's loads of opportunity to do things differently as a developer as well, and that interests me a lot, how you present things differently. And I don't know how that looks like, but, modern ways of construction and modern architecture, and, how that's presented and put into a framework going forward. I think it's, like I say, it's an ever-evolving area, isn't it? And more so as we progress. I think it's quite an exciting place to be, actually.
Planning, exciting and sexy. I think, that is an issue with the planning profession, which we talked about, is it's not perceived as being sexy, but actually it is really impactful in the overall journey. But
these guys design our cities and towns, so of course it is like
they're the custodians of making sure that what's delivered is suitable and fits in, and you're going to have to look at it for the next 100, 200 years. It is a big decision to make. And
I think what's particularly interesting, isn't it? Particularly interesting is, just look at the development in Manchester, and Ancoats is always used as that example, isn't it? But I think I saw something just a couple of days ago about what Ancoats Marina looked like in 2005 compared to now. I mean, it's just incredible. So to create something like that is unbelievable.
Yeah, and then that's part of forward-thinking planning. Yeah, setting out a brief, setting out parameters of what something can be and look like, and developers then have an understanding of what they can deliver there. So I think for me the interesting bit for us to explore further on planning next year is more almost the politics of it, like the democratic side of it, where we've looked at kind of the rules and the system so far, but actually the people who are deciding whether something gets planning approval or not are planning committee members. So and they are basically elected people. So understanding that side of things a bit more, and perhaps getting on a guest who's a planning committee member might be an interesting one to understand the politics of it a bit more.
So right back at you. What about what's yours?
I think for me there's a lot of episodes where we've had inspirational people on. But actually, was it this year or was it last year when we had Attle on?
I think it was the start of this year.
Was it the start of this year? Yeah. Just the inspiration and energy Attle brings to a project, and to anything he does. And actually, talking about inspirational people that we've had on, Rebecca was inspirational when she came on, talking with a passion about planning and her role in that. And similarly with Sky as well, there's some subjects there, planning and development finance, that aren't particularly easy to sort of get excited about on the surface, but it's good to see that people are there's inspirational people out there who are passionate about what they do and helping transform the built environment. So I think for me, it's just some of the people we've had on, some of the guests, and pretty much all of the guests being passionate about what they do, and being inspirational. So what do we think are biggest achievements of 2023?
From a cert point of view?
Well, I mean, talk about your personal life if you like.
No, I'm not sure I should. I think, without fail, our biggest achievement is the Cert Life app. So we have been actually the inspiration for Cert Life, which we'll talk about more next year, but the inspiration came 6 years ago. So it was back down to when me and you first met, and we talked about what our vision was for the future of property management, lettings, and that's evolved over time. We've been talking about it. Well, it's always been a constant goal of ours, and we're in a place to start bringing Cert Life alive probably about 2 or 3 years ago. So we've had a team working on that. It's evolved into what Cert Life was, and even the name's evolved. In fact, an early one was Certitude for mine.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I remember that.
But that didn't make the cut. So Cert Life was born, and I won't talk too much about it because we'll save that for another episode. But next year we will be launching our bespoke Cert Life app, which we're confident will be a game changer in the industry.
Yeah, for build to rent, for buy to let, for commercial lettings, for all of the above. Yeah, so I think that is definitely one of the biggest achievements of this year. And like you say, it's one of the biggest achievements of this year, but many years thought and preparation gone into it as well. I think for me, the biggest achievement of 2023 is probably the Cert Life app, but no, other than that, I think what we've done at Duke and Parr, obviously we completed the development 18 months ago now, and then actually completed the letting to Sony last year. And it looks like we won't be selling it this year, but that's a news announcement for next year. But we were nominated for a couple of awards, which we didn't win. Some might say we were robbed. We've actually got one of the judges on our next episode, so we can talk more about that then. But I think we saw Sony Firesprite actually moved into the property this year, and what they've done with it is absolutely incredible. Amazing. So it feels like this year was the kind of culmination of the journey we've been on with Duke and Parr. And to see it all occupied and up and running now is really, really pleasing. So one of the achievements of the year there. I think other achievements for me, Hilton House, reletting that, fully let. We've got a great mix of tenants and a great community. One of the buildings where we've done what we set out to do, which is curate communities and make people feel part of something. And we've definitely done that exceptionally well at Hilton House. So a big achievement there. And then I think as well, the challenges of the market over the course of this year, after what we've witnessed and had to experience over the last 2-3 years with the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and then talks about the energy cost increases and then interest rate increases. It's been a really uncertain market and a really challenging market to be in property. And I think the way that we've got our heads down, continue to progress projects, whether they be in planning or pre-construction or on site, and to be going into 2024 in a really, really good place. I think that's a big achievement for the year.
I think my key word for the year is resilient.
Resilient. Yeah. Mine probably would be transition, because I think we've transitioned as a business, but I think more widely, goes back to what we were saying before, I think the market's transitioned as well. Like I say, those high interest rates meaning perhaps less people buying and staying in rental properties, the first suburban build-to-rent, single-family build-to-rent coming to the market. We've got our Cert Life app ready to launch to take the build-to-rent sector by storm. It's been a year of transition for me. But I think resilience plays a part in that too, because you needed to be resilient to deal with all the mass uncertainty that there's been out there in the market during the course of the year. So, yeah.
So we've touched on a couple of things, but what's in store for 2024?
So for us, they got the Circle Life app launching, but as well as that, it was a goal for this year to get ourselves ready to enter suburban community living markets. That's our name for the single family build to rent market, and we're close to agreeing terms on our first site to bring our concept forward there. 2024, seeing that progress, seeing ourselves go out and do some more suburban build-to-rent schemes, bringing forward some of our city centre build-to-rent schemes, and one of our build-to-sell schemes, so bringing forward Peeler's Yard, getting on site with that, completing Sona, our project in Ardwick, our build-to-rent project there, and that being the first test case for Cert Life and everything we want to do with it.
Busy.
Yeah, a few things going on there.
So, to close, we've talked a couple of predictions for 2024. So one of them was tenants searching for Build's all-inclusive rents, managing liabilities and forecasting liabilities going forward. We talked about continuation of the build-to-rent, but let me take you 3 predictions for 2024.
As I say, build-to-rent, seeing the senior living aspect of build-to-rent, whatever shape or form that takes, emerge. And seeing the continuance of the emergence of the suburban build-to-rent. I think we will see an interesting rental market where we've seen massive growth in rents over 2023. I'm not quite sure it will continue at the same pace in 24, and there might be a bit of up and down, but I think rents will still continue to grow. That's residential. And I think, final one, our home city of Manchester will still continue to thrive and be a great place to be, and see further people wanting to move here, further businesses relocating here, and actually the market continue to grow.
Thank you. Well, in a year's time, we'll sit here again. So that's us for 2023. If you liked what you hear, follow us, subscribe to us, get all the latest episodes, and check out certproperty.co.uk for all our latest news, investment info, and property management information. Thank you.